Happy Friday and welcome to another episode of BrainScratch. I'm John Lordan. Thank you so much for spending some time with me here today. Now, if you've happened to catch one of our Secret Studio live streams, you may have seen us do a little animal appreciation. I've got several pets in my house. I also volunteer at a local shelter. There's something special in my heart for people that are keyed into helping these little lives. And the person that we're talking about today, Rachel Hansen, certainly had that. She also had what some might consider a challenging start to life, but Rachel didn't let that slow her down at all. Unfortunately, something would bring her life to a complete stop. Let's go ahead and learn more about Rachel, starting with a picture of her here. I believe that is one of her pride and joys. I think that is her horse, Dash. We're going to hear a little bit more about Dash as we go on today's story as well. This story takes place in Gilbert, Arizona. Gilbert is a town in Maricopa County, Arizona, in the United States. It's located southeast of Phoenix within the city's metropolitan area. And Gilbert comes up frequently on top 10 lists or top 50 lists of safest places to live. As a matter of fact, in this list at southwestjournal.com, the author put together kind of their own version of this list, and in the number one spot, Gilbert, Arizona. Why? It's a city of over 2,500 people that consistently ranks as one of the safest in the U.S. It has a strong economy, highly educated population, and over 40% of residents there hold a bachelor's degree or higher. It's got excellent schools, beautiful parks, including Freestone Park. So it seems like the type of place where, quite honestly, stories like we're talking about here today shouldn't happen, but unfortunately it did happen, and we want to raise exposure to it because there's a lot of people still looking for answers in this. What happened? Let's go ahead and start over at abc15.com. June 4th, 2022, around 2 a.m., the Gilbert Police Department received a 911 call from a female caller who advised she had been shot by an unknown person inside her apartment near Santan Village Parkway and Ray Road. Let's just stop and absorb that for a moment, because this is already painting a crazy scene. We've got someone that came into her apartment. She's in bed at the time. They shoot her, single gunshot. They leave. She's still alive, gets herself to the phone, calls 911, and basically relays the information to them that she doesn't know this person. She doesn't know this person that came in and shot her. It's just insane. Hayden Smith, a close friend of Rachel Hansen's, tells ABC 15, I don't know why somebody would choose her, especially someone so young that had their life ahead of them. ABC reporter Christine Stanwood asks, Hayden, do you think that she was targeted? And Smith replied, I do, 100%. So we know that she survives the initial gunshot. What happens after that? Let's jump over to fox10phoenix.com. Officers arrived to find 19-year-old Rachel Hansen. Hansen was transported to the Chandler Regional Medical Center, where she was later pronounced as deceased. From what I understand, they put her right into surgery, and they worked on her, I think, for about 3 hours before, unfortunately, she passed away. Neighbors said they didn't hear anything going on at her apartment until they saw police arrive, then realized something had happened. Now, that's kind of strange, too. We're talking an apartment complex. They must have some really thick walls. I mean, any apartments that I lived in my life, you would think that if you heard a gunshot in a neighboring unit, that there'd be a good chance you would hear that. Now, admittedly, we're talking 2 o'clock in the morning, but still, I don't know. Cheyenne Walters was a friend of Hansen as well as her eyelash technician. She says that she saw Hansen at 9 a.m. for an appointment the day before her death. I see her, and then not even 24 hours later, all this happens, she said, and it doesn't even seem real. She says that Hansen was going through some personal problems, but finally started to feel like her life was getting back on track. And I really want to kind of cover this part of the information because we're trying to understand this. I know her family is trying to understand this as well. This seems almost like a motiveless killing. This person comes in and shoots her, and isn't even sure that she's expired, and then leaves. Apparently doesn't take anything. So it's not a robbery. There's no sexual assault component. There's nothing like that going on here. What is this? Why would someone just come in and do that? So her friend is pointing out definitely some personal problems that are going on in her life. She had spoken to the people she subleased to out in Gilbert, where she was unfortunately killed. So breaking that sentence down, it sounds like the apartment that she was actually shot in, from what I understand, this was only her second day back. And that raises an important question too, when you combine that with her calling 911 and saying, I don't know who this person is that came in and shot me. Is she possibly the wrong victim? Could this actually be related to the people that had lived there only 2 days before? But it also points to another possibility here. So she had subleased the apartment to someone else, but told them, hey, this isn't going to work out. I got to move back in. Let's continue with a quote from Walters here. She arranged to move back in. She got the last of her things moved in on Thursday, and she told me that she finally started to feel like herself. So there might be some tension around that as well. Now, I would have to think law enforcement would immediately key in on this possibility of, hey, is there something that went on with the previous tenants? Are they upset? I mean, how does that look? You know, she's subleasing this apartment to them, and then all of a sudden she comes back and she tells them, you know, this isn't going to work out. I'm going to have to move back in here. You guys have to leave. Could that be rough? Yeah. Could that develop some hard feelings between people? I think so. Would that be enough to do something like this? I don't know. That really depends on the type of person that's dealing with this and how they deal with things. But I would have to think that law enforcement would have thought of that lead like right off the top and looked in that direction. Now, unfortunately, here we are a year later, and we don't have any solution to this case. So it seems like it's probably not going to be something that simple. The article continues. Hansen loved animals, training horses, and loved the important people in her life. Let's continue with another news source. This is 12news.com. They have also interviewed Cheyenne. So this is continuing with a quote. Another quote from Cheyenne here. She passed alone and scared. Her mother was out of town. Her mother had to get on a plane to fly back just to say goodbye to her, Walters explained. Walters said the shooting happened just days after Hansen's prized mare that's pregnant with twins was allegedly stolen from her property in the East Valley. So now we get into another potential avenue of investigation here. What's going on with Dash, her horse, being stolen while Dash is pregnant with twins? It was her prized possession. She loved that mare more than anything in the world, said Cheyenne. While police haven't confirmed whether or not the alleged horse theft is connected, Walters believes the shooting was no accident. So this is the second of her friends to basically say, this is no accident. For some reason, she was targeted. Cheyenne actually continues. She had been shot and killed and had just barely moved back into, and I don't find that to be a coincidence at all. This never should have happened. Her parents shouldn't be having to bury their baby. And I don't know who can disagree with that. Over at azfamily.com, friends want answers after 19-year-old woman killed in Gilbert apartment. Some more information from Cheyenne. Cheyenne Walters said that the 19-year-old was excited about the future. Her real estate career was about to kick off. Apparently, she had just gotten her real estate license as well. Quote, she was a spitfire, just probably the most caring, nurturing person you will meet in your life. She was so passionate about animals and about kids, and she wanted so much with her life. She had her life more together than any 19-year-old I know. She knew what she wanted. She was going to get what she wanted, and that's probably what's the most heartbreaking about this. Cheyenne also has some strong feelings about the horse. Quote, I believe that horse should go to nobody but her best friend or her family. I don't think that horse should go into anybody else's hands or anybody else's care. Most of all, she just wants justice for her friend and for the person who killed her to turn themselves in. She was 19. You didn't give her a chance to even find out who she truly was. You took that from her. You took that from her in every way and shape and form, and it's not okay, and it's not all right. She deserves justice. I really appreciate that she has friends speaking so strongly about this, and I appreciate that Cheyenne is trying to relay information that she thinks might be helpful in terms of the investigation, and she's basically given us 2 leads here, maybe 3 if we consider the kind of built-in possibility that this might not be the right target. I can't shake that from my mind when you're considering that she's only been there for a matter of 2 days when this happens. But outside of that, maybe something with the previous renters, maybe something around the theft of Dash, certainly seem like strong possibilities in a case of this nature. Let's take a look at the area. I want to drop down to the map level real quick and take a look. This is the Redstone apartment complex. This is where it happened. And I was kind of surprised to see that it's an apartment complex that is somewhat closed off from outside access. If we take a look at it from above here, we can see that despite the fact it's surrounded by 4 roads, there's really only 2 entry points. We've got this entry point, which is the one that I'm looking at right here. And there's another one over on, looks like it's called East Private Street. Let me go ahead and drop down there too so we can take a look at that one. Yeah, and this one, the gate is closed. Looks like that might be triggered upon entrance and exit only. Admittedly, pretty short wall. Someone could probably hop over this. I'd be surprised if there's no surveillance over here. I mean, why are you going to have an area that's kind of secured in this way where there's pretty much only 2 ways in and out if you're not going to cover those with cameras in some way? But to be honest, I am not seeing any obvious indicator of cameras there. Oh, it looks like maybe the apartment complex actually continues on the other side of this public street. I mean, I would like to think they would at least have a camera at least capturing the vehicles coming in and out. Maybe on the other side of this, maybe there could be one that's mounted low on the brick. It's kind of strange, but let's take a look at the main entrance. This one I saw was also gated. It leads kind of right into where the leasing office is. And at least from what I'm seeing here, it's kind of unusual to me that both these gates are just open like this. I don't think the timing of the Google Maps driver coming through here and being able to actually get captures of all this is coincidence. I think that those gates are actually open during business hours, probably so people could come and talk to people at the leasing office. Again, just kind of taking a quick look. I mean, you would think around the leasing office, at least, there should be some form of cameras here, but I'm not seeing it. There's kind of decorations here, light posts, but I'm not seeing anything obvious in the normal spots for where we would have cameras, which seems really unfortunate. I mean, you've got these kind of pinch points where people are able to get in and out of this complex, but if there's no cameras, I don't know how that's going to help. Over at KOLD.com, we have a neighbor, Terani Chin, saying, quote, "I chose Gilbert because it was a safe community. My son goes to Gilbert Public Schools and it just seemed like a great place to raise a family." Of course, we have neighbors kind of second guessing that after hearing what happened here. And apparently the weekend that this happened, there was several shootings in this area. I think it was the first week of summer. I don't know. I haven't really looked into a stat about that. I don't know if there's a rise in shootings necessarily when that happens, but when I was watching the news coverage about this case, that was kind of the thing that was always leading. It was like, you know, a particularly deadly time in Gilbert. Over the past several days, we've had multiple shootings. We'll get into some stats just a little bit on what's going on there now, but over at gilbertsunnews.com, let's learn a little bit more here and about Rachel's life, Rachel's upbringing, some of those challenges that I had mentioned. Rachel entered the foster care system at age 5. and she was adopted by a family with 13 children. She graduated from high school at 16. She basically just shaved a year off of high school to get started with life. She started her own business that involved training, hauling, and finding horses for customers, and was studying to add real estate agent to her resume. And she is remembered as a free and generous spirit who enjoyed outdoor activities. Quote, "It was hard to have a bad day around Rachel, the sweetest person and no doubt a lot of people's best friend," one person wrote. Of course, who would know her better than her mother? Let's learn a little bit over at azfamily.com from her mother, Kim Hansen. Kim lives on a ranch just 3 miles from her daughter's apartment. She feels the need to be strong for her family despite losing a daughter days before she turned 20. That was another thing. It was literally her 20th birthday the following week. "I just kept thinking this is not real," Kim said. Kim has fostered over 100 kids over the years. What an amazing family this is. And obviously, it's so obvious to be talking about a 19-year-old like this, someone that graduated early, started their own business, has moved out, is supporting herself, living on her own, prepping for her future in real estate. There's so much around this that is really, really heartbreaking when you consider what has happened here. Kim fostered over 100 kids over the years. Rachel was one of 9 that they would end up adopting. Rachel was just 5 years old when she came into Kim's life. Her adoption day was May 14th. That was a special day for her, so much so that right on her arm she had tattooed in Roman numerals her adoption day, her mother Kim said. Kim said she was in shock when she found out that Rachel was shot. I think her to call the Gilbert Police Department says it all, in that she had the wherewithal to get to her phone and to call and say, "I've been shot by somebody I don't know," Kim said. It really does. And based on more, we're going to hear a little bit more from Kim about Rachel, but just based on what Kim says about her personality, this is a go-getter. This is a young woman that when she wanted something, she would go for it. If she wanted to get on that horse, if that horse wasn't ready, she was going to go try it anyway. And she would tell her mom on the way, "Well, wish me luck. I'm going to go give this a shot." This is someone that was really kind of going after life. But unfortunately, someone would come and take all that from her. Over at abc15.com, this article from 1 month later, a month has passed. Still no suspect has been identified. For the first time since her death, Rachel's mother, Kim, spoke to ABC 15. Kim got medical records for her daughter's death and discovered she suffered a single gunshot wound. "I always felt so safe living in Gilbert, like, I don't know how this could happen," said Kim. Kim said Rachel's biological mother abandoned her family when Rachel was a toddler. Other adults looked over Rachel for her mother after she left, and at that time, it's pretty much described as the dark years, until she was brought into Kim's life. Before her death, Rachel was preparing to ride off into the sunset of a prosperous life. She was planning a fall wedding with her new fiancé. So we have another loss in all this and another sign of this life that she was aiming for and putting together for herself. Here we have some pictures of Rachel with her fiancé. She recently got her real estate license with plans to sell land for those with livestock. It's such a tremendous loss. She did have so much potential and so much to give the community and the world, said her mother, Kim. Rachel's horse that went missing is related to the investigation. Kim said police told her they're following all leads, but it's highly unlikely that the two are related. So it's interesting here. They're saying that it's related to the investigation. It's obviously something that they're looking into. But at this point, just 1 month later, law enforcement's already telling Kim, we don't think that this is likely involved in what happened to her. Rachel's horse did go missing weeks before her death, but has since been recovered. She leaves behind 9 brothers and sisters, including a biological sister that Kim also adopted. So Kim took on Rachel and her biological sister. From what I understand, Dash, the horse, has been recovered and is with Kim. And that's kind of started a new way that Kim is honoring Rachel, basically by starting an animal shelter in her name and taking care of Dash and these new young horses that came along with Dash. Over at 12news.com, Kim said, "I just miss her so much. She was a huge part of my world." When officers arrived on the scene the day of the shooting, they immediately did what they could to try to save her. Rachel was taken to the hospital. Surgeons spent 3 hours trying to save her. They just couldn't. Quote, "And it's just so very difficult not only missing her, but not understanding such a senseless act," Kim said. Rachel's fiance, his name is Jomet Bailey. We have a quote from him here as well. "We were supposed to get married. I was supposed to spend my whole life with Rachel. And now I just have to live." Because of Rachel's love for animals, Follow Your Heart Animal Rescue is offering a $10,000 reward for information leading to the conviction and arrest of whoever is responsible. That's amazing, and my hat's off to that wonderful organization, Follow Your Heart Animal Rescue. I'll have a link for them in the description box down below if you guys want to show them some appreciation as well. EastValleyTribune.com reports Gilbert woman slaying rattles community. "We know that an unknown person entered Hansen's apartment, but identifying a potential motive is part of the ongoing investigation," said police spokeswoman Brenda Carrasco in an email 2 days after the homicide. "I don't have any additional or new information to provide at this time." And that's one of maybe 2 quotes that I think I've seen from law enforcement on this. They're keeping very, very tight-lipped. And we all know, especially in this day of social media, that leads to a lot of theorizing, speculation, and other things. With few details released, speculation about Hansen's death was rampant on social media, many tying her death to a horse that she owned. Quote, "She had received threats from the persons who stole her horse. They had been harassing her over posts she made," a man wrote. "She was selling her things because someone had stole her horse and was demanding ransom to have it returned." Now keep in mind, yes, we're reading this in a news source, but this is quoting social media. This isn't necessarily factual stuff. It's just what someone posted online. Another woman posted, "I feel it was the people that stole her horse and made many threats. They wanted ransom money and was threatening her from fake Facebooks. It's an ugly situation." Another woman wrote, "There is no way the people who stole her horse aren't related to this. This is not a coincidence." Police remain tight-lipped if the speculations had merit. Quote, "Identifying a potential motive in this shooting is part of our ongoing investigation," said Sergeant Paul Alanis. "Any leads or tips submitted by the public are actively being worked." Like I said, they're just mum's the word when it comes to law enforcement on this. And in a twist that only social media could seemingly create, the majority of comments blamed apartments for leading to Hansen's death. Quote, "Apartments will be the downfall to the low crime in Gilbert, but it's all about the tax dollars." Hansen's death was the second homicide so far this year in Gilbert. Pretty amazing to think because, I mean, that's by June and you're talking 250,000 people that live there. I mean, obviously this is a community that is used to having very low crime rates. I don't know that apartments, I don't even think it's a conversation I want to get into. That's not the focus of this, but it's just interesting to me to see how social media can take something like that, something like the death of a young woman that needs focus and exposure raised to it, and turn it into a soapbox for some other kind of commentary like that. Unfortunately, it's part of the norm of being in this social media age that we're all in now. Over at 12news.com, straight information from her mother, Kim.
No, there's no motive, there's no witness, there's no weapon, there's no cameras.
I have no idea what the motive could be here, especially, look, they've got the horse back. So they've spoken to whoever took the horse. Kim has the horse now. So I would have to think that leg of the investigation has been probably worked out, unless there is the possibility that there's some piece of evidence that is missing in terms of them filing charges against the people. I can't completely rule the horse out. All I can say is I'm sure police have been looking in that direction very, very strongly because Dash is back with Kim. Rachel's prized mare was pregnant with the foal that now roams Kim's backyard. A year later, Rachel's murder remains unsolved. The week of May 29th to June 4th, 2022 marked not only the first week of summer, but also the first week of the year that the Gun Violence Archive documented more than 1,000 shootings nationwide. I believe we are also right in the middle of Gun Violence Awareness Month. I know we had Gun Violence Awareness Day at the start of this month. There's a couple of different classifications around that. Excellent time to talk about a story like this, but in the same manner, I don't want to turn this into soapbox on, other conversations about this. This is really about Rachel. So there's much more stats here about the gun violence. I'm going to kind of skip over that stuff right now. What's important is of the shootings that have happened in this particular area, there was 12 shootings that killed 10 people and injured 15 more. 8 of those shootings in Maricopa County remain unsolved. And how is Kim and her family honoring Rachel? Well, Kim is doing something very special that I know Rachel would appreciate. We've been trying to do things that remind us of her all the time. Kim now operates an animal rescue at the family home, something she said Rachel was always passionate about, caring for dogs and puppies, even goats and birds. It's been very difficult trying to figure out how to live life again, Kim said. And as we hit the 1-year mark, it does seem that Kim is sharing some more detail. I think just trying to help keep the exposure raised to this case, especially with law enforcement being so tight-lipped on this. Let's get some more detail here from GilbertSunNews.com. She was sleeping on her back, Kim said about her daughter. The bullet went in the lower left abdomen and went out her top right shoulder. Understanding the path that bullet took, I think now it makes sense why we had surgeons working on her for 3 hours. That path basically goes through several vital organs, and who knows how much damage they were trying to fix in there. I mean, it's terrible. There's some question if the main door was unlocked or if someone had a key. So it sounds like maybe no forced entry that was noticed. But her bedroom door was shut because she had 2 pups in there that she was fostering. They didn't take anything, Kim said. Nothing was stolen. Nothing was missing, once again adding to this big question about the motive. A resident living at the complex noted she heard no noise from Rachel's apartment. Quote, "My apartment is wall to wall with hers, and it breaks my heart that we didn't hear anything and therefore didn't call for help," she said. "We had no idea anything had happened until police banged on our door." Her mother, Kim, continues, she didn't have any enemies. She didn't have any bad things going on in her life. She did not use drugs. I wonder if it was the wrong place at the wrong time. I can't imagine anybody intentionally taking her life at all. So honestly, from Kim's perspective, where Rachel's friends were kind of saying, no, I think she was targeted, Kim seems to be more of the mind that, no, this is something that was random or possibly the wrong target. I would have to think that law enforcement is talking to those previous tenants and chasing down that lead. I can't imagine they wouldn't be, with her only being in there for 2 days. Another quote from Kim, when she was young, 10 years old, she would take her wagon and walk around the block and go to neighbors to ask for food donations. She was always going above and beyond to supporting causes of people that she loved. She also rescued abandoned horses, and she saved wild mustangs on federal land by training and rehoming them, according to Kim. Rachel was killed 8 days before her 20th birthday, which was June 12th. She was going to celebrate with her family at her favorite place, Canyon Lake, where she would go tubing, skiing, diving off the board, and cliff jumping. Besides horses, Rachel also loved wrestling, soccer, and she was the only girl on the football team in the 8th grade. How is Kim feeling about the case at this point, a year later? Hansen said she's very optimistic that the police will close the case. Quote, "We do meet with the detective every couple months. He kind of says, we're working on it. We've done some things. We go down one rabbit hole and something else pops up. They've been following a couple of different leads, but that's all they can tell us. They don't want anything to get out. We're just continuing to keep her story alive and known and out there so that people don't forget about it. I want people to be aware." Kim said it very plainly, and I'm going to echo it. I want people to be aware too. There's not a ton of coverage on this case. If you can please help me, if you know people in Arizona, please share this video with them. Let's raise exposure to Rachel's case and give Kim every chance that we can at finding justice for this young life taken in this way. And I have to believe someone out there knows something about, I mean, obviously there's one person that does, but someone around that person has to have some piece of this puzzle that can help law enforcement bring this killer in and have them face justice. I mean, I can't imagine what this 19-year-old felt like. Just finally feeling like she was in her new home. She had only been there for 2 days. Someone comes in. I don't know. It's also interesting to me to hear that fact where maybe there wasn't a method of break-in that happened. Could that mean that someone else had a copy of the key? Should we be looking at people that work at the apartment complex? There's all kinds of different avenues of investigation around this. And that's with the super limited information that we have. I mean, outside of Kim and Cheyenne, we really have no sources on this. Law enforcement isn't really saying anything about this case. But even just with those two sources, look at all the different legs of investigation that we have found just in today's conversation. I understand that this is going to be a tricky case, particularly because the victim didn't recognize the person that shot her. This would be a completely different thing if it was someone that she knew, someone that was close to her in her life or someone she had done business with. And when she calls law enforcement, she's like, it's this guy. I know it's this person. We don't have that benefit here. So I know that this is a really tough case. And I'm thankful that Kim seems to be giving law enforcement the space and the respect around how they want to handle it, but still doing kind of a smart thing 1 year later, doing another round with the media, maybe releasing just a little more information. I think that's probably a pretty good pattern to kind of keep up as this case goes on. I hope she doesn't have to wait another year, but if she does get to year 2, I think that's a good method. Just drop a little more new detail and try to keep the exposure raised on this. Because outside of someone calling in some tip or police finally making some, I would have to think that any evidence a year later has been processed. I know that DNA backlogs are going on in some areas. Maybe there's some form of DNA evidence that wouldn't have been processed completely at this point. But the basics, fingerprint analysis, all that kind of stuff, I would think all that has been done. And this case isn't solved yet. So at some point, I'm really hoping that law enforcement might even come out with some particular piece of information. We need more details about this. Hey, public, come help us. We're not quite there yet, but it seems like Kim is there. She's definitely asking for help. So if you do happen to have any information about this case, please, please, please pick up the phone. I've got all the contact information that you need in the details down below. Call it in, put it in play, and let's see if justice can be brought sooner rather than later for Rachel. There is a GoFundMe that is running for this family, basically to just assist them during this difficult time. On top of that, now knowing Kim's intention in terms of starting the animal rescue in Rachel's name, I couldn't help but make a donation. So we've already made a donation, and a huge thank you to everyone that supports us on Patreon, PayPal, people that buy merch, people that buy us coffees. Thank you guys so much. It's because of you guys that we could do things like this. So we've already made a donation to the GoFundMe for the family here. There is a Web Sleuth thread. It's very short. It's another one of the reasons why I was motivated to do this. When Web Sleuths only has 3 or 4 posts on a case, that means it's practically buried, guys. We need to spin up the conversation around this. We need more people talking and thinking about this case, and we need that to reach the right person that has the information to shake that loose. A big thank you to everyone. If you've stuck through the video to this point, thank you so much. I really appreciate you guys out there that really do care about these cases like I do. Have a great weekend. Come back next week. We'll have much more for you here on the LordanArts channel.